Well, welcome to each and every one of you to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle offered every Saturday by Still and Moving Center. And we take up our topics for the week from the Still and Moving Center Almanac. And this week's topic is being fair, just, Pono, which is a Hawaiian word. And we are so fortunate that Kumu, Malia, Helela is going to be our presenter today. Kumu is really a revered title in the Hawaiian tradition. It's someone who has been deeply trained in traditional practices of the culture. And when we say that she is a Kumu hula, we mean she has been so trained in hula dancing. She's also been deeply trained in lomi lomi, which is a massage and health technique used traditionally in Hawaii. And she finds great similarity between the two. She's also been trained by going to Kamehameha schools where she learned the Hawaiian language. And she has performed many cultural practices on behalf of Still and Moving Center and on her own as a cultural practitioner here on the islands. She has stood by my side since Still and Moving Center opened and before. And I'm so appreciative of you being able to come with us today when I know you're going to be doing a number of performances tonight for our 12th birthday celebration. Yay. So thank you, Kumamali, and let me just hand it over to you now.
Aloha mai kako, aloha everybody. I would also like to just bring into the circle my mom, which I'm sure many of you have gotten to know very well, Mary Bird. This weekend, she's at a St. Anthony's Catholic retreat at a beautiful retreat area in the back of Kalihi Valley. And so I have extra special love to bring forward from my mom to all of you. She does wish she could be here, but she is actually a support person for her retreat. So I told her, it's okay, Mom, I'll be here for both of us. So I wanted to begin by talking about Pono from the perspective of somebody who is constantly seeking Pono. I don't want to come in front of you and start speaking as if I know exactly what it is and how to attain it. I really come from a very humble perspective of somebody who is seeking balance. We have what is the theme of the week: to be fair, to be just, to be Pono. And I like to think of Pono as also including harmony and balance. And I think we can all relate to this idea that it takes a lot to maintain our balance. And so I just wanted to start with that little word that, yes, I am a seeker. I am not a master of balance. And yet it is such a worthy endeavor to strive and to seek for balance. And so I thought to start, I would like to chant for all of you my newest Oli. This is a chant that I wrote last year specifically for my Lomi Lomi students. I wanted to create a chant, a prayer that they could use not only for themselves, but for their clients and also their spaces. And so I'll explain a little bit more about the chant, but I'm just going to bring it up and share it so that you can all see and just let the words wash over you. Don't worry about trying to figure it out or understand. Just receive. Kuana auma kuana kupuna ema lama Yama mai luna la mai lokua mai kahikina ke komo ana mai kaho'okui a kahala gaie kia mai ka ko mai o ola mai ke aloha And 2 claps to close. All right, aloha everybody. So for those of you just joining, I wanted to really approach this concept of Pono from the point of view of a practitioner and as somebody who recognizes that there are a lot of pieces that goes into maintaining our balance, to being holistic, to finding our own sense of rightness, of balance, of justness. And I wanted to start with actually a researcher named Malcolm Chun. He recently passed, I believe, just a couple of years ago. But he was a very mild-mannered, soft-spoken researcher. I have never met him, but I have certainly read many of his writings. And Malcolm Chun surveyed quite a few legends and just writings to see what were the common values, that made up a Hawaiian worldview. And I'm just gonna speak through some of these. I'm not necessarily going to share that on screen, but just see which one of these resonate with you. So the first one he has is belonging, right? That some might say it is aloha, but that to this researcher, belonging was that important value of love. He also brought forward this idea of mastery, right? Of not just learning, but developing and honing your skill to a high level. So mastery. There's also observation, that keen, critical eye, being able to very sharply see nuance. So observation is another one. Another value is listening, right? That ability to listen, pay attention, to be attentive. All right, another value, reflection, right? The ability to consider, right? And to, just to reflect upon something and see, the bigger picture. I think similar to this reflection is also questioning, right? That value of being able to observe, but to ask that next question, right? And he did make a note that this is something that was encouraged in Keiki, right? That this sense of curiosity and questioning was actually something that was valued. Another one, independence. Independence. And so this idea that when a young person has mastered a skill, that they're not dependent anymore. And then in fact, the community can depend upon them. So independence, and that speaks to me because my twins are turning 18 tomorrow. So independence is quite on my mind. This one speaks to my heart, this next value of generosity, right? Being able to learn and then give back, right? That quality of generosity. And then finally, he actually ends with Pono. And one of our early Hawaiian scholars, David Malo, he dedicated an entire chapter in his book on Hawaiian traditions. And I think that this idea of Pono, of righteousness and balance, kind of encapsulates all of these previous qualities that were listed by Malcolm Chun. Now, I know I just said a lot. Maybe you can find something that resonates with you, but I am going to just keep talking for a little bit more, and then we'll have some discussion in a bit. But taking a look at all of these qualities, I think it's interesting that each one of us is going to resonate with something a little bit different. You might have a whole number of things that are not even on this list, things that are meaningful to you in your seeking of finding your center, your balance. And this is something that I actively started seeking for myself about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when my kids started getting a little bit more independent, a little bit more skilled. I remember writing down in my journal saying that I feel like there's some method, some system, something that can help me organize myself. I just didn't know what it was. And so I'm not sure where it came from, but I had this idea of an island, of a heart-shaped island. And in Hawaiian resource management, we have recognized Hawaiian just divisions of land. And generally they do run from the mountains to the sea. And so if we imagine our island, tall mountain in the middle, almost like pieces of pie. And I say generally because there are exceptions. There's always exceptions. But there was this idea that if there is a land division, a district that contains all of the resources from the mountain to the sea, then that district is self-sustaining. And they're going to be different. Growing up on the windward side, we have rain, we have wind, we have greenery. My dad taught at Leeward Community College, which actually has cactus and heat and dryness and salt and fishing. You know, there's challenges and resources that are different. But if we look at this idea of a self-sustaining district, my system took form, and I call mine Palena. And I'm going to show you guys just a picture so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about. But this is my framework where I started to think about what are the things that go into the whole of me. And this has become a means for me to just self-check and say, okay, am I balanced? Am I being fair? Are things Pono in each of these aspects of my life, with the intention of just releasing all of those boundaries between these divisions of who I am and just being Malia in whatever role I have. And so I know that can be maybe a little hard to follow. Let me show you a picture of what I mean. And so sometimes I call this my heart-shaped island. I have named it Palena, and Palena means boundary, but I've defined Palena as protected spaces, right? Protected spaces. And if this island is our heart-shaped island, I've loosely based this on the island of Kauai, where Waialeale is the water source, right at the center of the island. And this water source is flowing and giving water to all of these districts. And so I'm just going to briefly go through, I'm not really teaching Palena, but I wanted to bring this forward today as an example of how I find balance, how I find my own sense of Pono. And it's a framework that's changing. I'm still considering, are these really the main districts? And before I go through these Hawaiian words, I just want to pop out of here and see by a show of hands, have you seen a life wheel? Anybody seen a life wheel? Yeah, circle, there's education, recreation, maybe spirituality, self-development, romance, all these different things. So this is just kind of my own version of a life wheel. Okay, so that's great. Most of you have seen that. Let's go back. And so when I had to decide for myself, what is the first? Like, what am I going to really base this system on? And Kumu is source. And many of you might know Kumu as teacher. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys. So most of you know Kumu as teacher, but to me, this is the source in all of my practices, whether it's hula or lomi lomi or lei making. There's always an acknowledgement that there's a greater spirit that is flowing through me. My hula teacher used to pray to be made clean, to be made a clean vessel for the Spirit of God to flow through her to her students. And so we acknowledge that there is a higher source. There is something beyond and greater than us that we can, ideally we can access it. We can be a channel for that. But this is even beyond me or my control. So that is my North Star up in the north. And then before I even consider the people in my life, there is the earth. So what is that connection to earth? And this can be wherever you are in the world, not just in Hawaii. My dad was raised in Connecticut and Maine, and he loved the mountains. And so I have a connection to the mountains through my dad from the AMC, the Appalachian Mountain Trail, the club. And so that's our connection to earth. And then before I even come into being, I have a lineage. I have an ancestry. I have my ancestors that all brought forth generations to, that ended up with me here, and now I have my own kids. And so lineage to me is not just my own genetic ancestors, but these are also the lineages of my teachers. And so these are all the people that came before me. That's my lineage. I acknowledge them. And then here is, in my current sphere, who are my relations? Who are my family members? Who are my coworkers? Who are my friends? Who are the people that I come into relation with? And there's an opportunity to check. Is there anybody that I need to care for more? Is there an entanglement? Is there something that I need to resolve? Something that I need to make right? So that is relations. And so this half to me is that bigger than me, outside of my control. What are the wider influences in my life? This next four, these are for me. And so from north coming right down to south, we have answering your calling. And to me, we are all born with our own set of gifts. And this is a very Hawaiian worldview where we actually are not considered as clean slates when we come into the world. We come in reflecting our ancestors, and every child is going to reflect something different, but we come with inherent gifts. And sometimes we know exactly what it is, and sometimes we have to find it. And so here is that little district where I can consider, am I answering my calling? Am I doing work or spending my time and my resources in a way that does answer my true calling? Along with that, here we have our resources, conveyed, and I like to put this under my realm of influence because time, money, all of these resources that we have, I can choose how I use them. So that's why I put resources under my control because these are the tools that I have to make those decisions. And then cultivating well-being, I think that's something that we do here at Still and Moving Center in many, many different ways, cultivating health of body, health of mind. Here in GEMS, cultivating spirit and that inquiry. So how do we cultivate our well-being? Are we doing it well? Right. And then finally, here at the end is navigating change. I wanted to give myself some space to figure out what are my next steps, right? What are my next steps? What are the decisions going to be that I make as I navigate change? So we have Kumu, source, Honua, earth, Velo, lineage, Pilina, relations, Hea, that's your calling, Kanavai, resources, natural law, Mauli is the spirit of who you are, your well-being, and Ho'okele is to navigate. And if we zoom out to look again at this island, there are on most of the islands an alaloa, a road that travels along the shoreline. And this alaloa gives us that opportunity to walk all the way around the island, check our resources, see where we need to go, and have a bigger picture. One last thought is this water that flows to all sides of the island. On the island of Kauai, Waialeale is, I'm going to come out of the share. Waialeale is a beautiful island. It is kind of heart-shaped, and Mount Waialeale at the center is the main water source. It has been recognized as one of the wettest places on Earth with such a heavy rainfall that it does send water to almost all of the districts. In ancient times, there was a chief who recognized that actually this one part of the island wasn't getting any water. And so he created this big project, this great feat of engineering. And I have talked to somebody who's seen the actual stones and the waterways up in the mountains, and they channeled water to that area. And that really resonates with me because sometimes we naturally have the resources we need, And sometimes we got to put in the work to channel resources where we need. And if we don't have the ability to step back and see, okay, where do we even need the water? Then we have that ability to manage our resources when we can have some understanding of what we even have. And so I know I've just said a lot of different things. I do want to open up for discussion in just a moment, but I wanted to close with the story of meeting Auntie Lynette Paglinawan. And so I had sent out as a reading a really beautiful reflection of somebody who had the opportunity to meet with Auntie Lynette. She and her husband, Likeke Paglinawan, they were social workers in the 60s, 70s onwards that were noticing that there was a disconnect between Western medicine and their Hawaiian community. And through the Queen Liliuokalani Children's Center, the Queen Liliuokalani Trust, they started meeting with both Western doctors and social workers and members of the Hawaiian community to identify what are the values, what are the issues that are specific to Hawaiians that are not being addressed in the Western models. And that set the foundation for so much of what we see today with the John Burns School of Medicine. There is so much more awareness of how culture is intertwined with every aspect of life. And so I wanted to close with just my briefest meeting with Auntie Lynette. I had gone with a group of Lomi Lomi practitioners to Tahiti, to a very, very special marae, which is a temple called Tapu Tapu Atea. And we were actually able to go onto the structure, which was very, very unusual. In fact, we're part of a wider conference where women were not allowed to walk out onto the stones. But life happens, things unfolded, and as a group, the Hawaiian contingency were allowed, including all of the women, to go out onto this platform. And I was near the end, and as we're getting nearer, I said, "Oh, Auntie, go ahead, you go ahead of me." And she just turned to me and she said, "No, baby, like you go ahead. I'm gonna catch you from the back. I'm gonna hold you from the back." And I just was so suffused with love from this sweet, sweet elder lady saying, "No, baby, you go. I've got you from the back." And so I thought, as we move into our discussion, rather than trying to kind of tinker and shape what we think Pono is, or what we think fair is, or what we think balanced is, I thought it might be nice to reflect on who in your life has been a model to you. Like, who in your life has shown you what it is to be fair, what it is to be balanced, and what it is to be Pono. And so with that, I am going to just say aloha to Roger. I see you have your hand up if you'd like to unmute. Aloha.
Hi, Kumu. So nice to see you. It was great to see you the other day out in Kaneohe too. And this is beautiful. That's just really a wonderful summary in Hawaiian culture of so many things that are clear in the pattern of life. Did you create that yourself, or this is from some other teaching?
Yeah, it was something I was trying to figure out how to share with my kids, who are maybe in elementary, and yeah, they're turning 18 in just a day. So
Well,
it's
your
something.
boy is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think this kind of guidance and self-understanding is so necessary today. And everything I feel and read and hear about what we need to do to go forward is to work on ourselves. And that's a beautiful pattern for setting that up, I think. And so I thank you for that. If I think about how many people have been Pono in my life, I would spend the rest of our time discussing them. But I want to thank you for teaching me a little bit of hula, even though I flaked out after a while because of my knees. And I wanted to just say hi. I may have to leave early, but thank you again for this beautiful. I'm gonna work on my own island myself based on your teaching here, and I know that'll be good for me. Thank you.
Oh, mahalo nui, mahalo nui. And I'd like to just do a slight little tweak to that narrative. You never flaked out on hula. You joined when you could, and you carry it with you. So that's all you ever need say. So I do want to recognize my mom once again. I know that you are all in a really, really special position of having had the chance to get to know my mom in this space. And so I think that goes without saying that she is one of my absolute models of what it is to be Pono in terms of being caring, of listening, of considering. So many of these things that, so many of those values that I listed from Malcolm Chun, to me, her mastery is in prayer and in just taking her spirit and the spirit of God and channeling it through prayer to, I know she prays for all of you. I know she does. So I'm going to bring Mom into the circle once again, and you are welcome. Anybody, if you'd like to share, if you want to bring somebody forward into our circle that has been an inspiration to you, I welcome that. Yeah. You can just take a breath, take a moment.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. There's so many people that I feel like that have helped me learn Pono, but I think there's something about balance in a woman's life that has just become more recognizable, and maybe in men's lives too. It seems like for so much of my parents' life, they were struggling or working or having to do many jobs, and self-care was never part of that. You know, they were always spiritual and they always went to church, but the idea of exercise or self-care was never part of was part of their thinking. And I think for me personally, I've had to work really hard to see self-care as part of my circle. That didn't mean I was selfish or that I wasn't trying to take care of everyone else. And for me, meditation is where I find my quiet and my center and listen and really want to follow divine wisdom's guidance. But I really think this idea of balance is rather new in my experience of working with people in our society, that it's always been, it seems like there's been an area that either they work a lot or they, it's like, so I love that this idea of balance and Pono is coming into our culture the last maybe 10 years in a different way than it's done before, because self-individuation or what you want to do or being your calling instead of what your duty is a whole new way of thinking, and self-care instead of always given to others, and really getting the spiritual life that we have the ability, because of our life situation, to really go into our spiritual lives in ways that many people didn't have the time because they were trying to provide for their family or just be on survival level as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it was really hard for them to be able to have that. So I love it. And I'm really glad it's being shared more. And I think it's really, really important. So thank you so much.
Oh, mahalo nui. I think you bring a really interesting point that, cultures change over time. And I am so heartened by, even in the course of my kids going to elementary school, and seeing how this awareness of mental health, of balance has really come forward. All right, has anybody had a thought arise? Anybody else like to share? David?
Aloha, Malia. Well, there are many people present in this group that have been representative of Pono for me, in particular you. And I am just ever so grateful for you and the wisdom that you shared with me over these, I guess now must be 11 years. I think I joined you at year 2. And as well, other people in this circle. And I was thinking how even Maslow's hierarchy could be separated as a wheel, could be separated as 5 districts, because we tend to operate in any one of those levels at any point in time. And yeah, I love the model that you gave, and it looks like you incorporated. It looks a little Big Island like as well, and just really appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Oh, mahalo nui. And the really beautiful thing about frameworks is that there's so much room in a framework for different variations. One thing that I think is so neat about land resource management is that in addition to the larger districts, there are smaller ahupua'a. And within the ahupua'a, smaller divisions of land and smaller and smaller. And this is recognized on the island of Oahu as coming from Chief Maili Kukahi in like the 1400s, that he's credited with not only creating the larger districts, but all the small ones as a means of stopping warfare, right? Of clearly marking the boundaries so that, all right, there it is. Everybody's got their space. Let's just all move forward. And so that is actually the real heart of where this process came from for me, is trying to think about this dynasty of Oahu chiefs that ruled in peace for maybe 10, 12 generations. Like, what was it about this dynasty that was different from the others? And the founder, Chief Maili Kukahi, is credited with dividing the lands and marking and surveying to stop warfare. And I think that was a really big clue for me. And there were also 2 women, 2 ali'iaimoku, which are female chiefs that ruled the entire island, not just the districts. One was Kala'imanuia, who is maybe 2 or 3 generations from Maili Kukahi, and then she had a daughter who was the next female ali'iaimoku. And so I think there are all these pieces, like how were they able to rule in peace? And so that was really something that led for me. Yeah. But thank you. I know it's I just want to call on people, but I will just keep the space open. If you'd like to share, you are so welcome. All right, Bob, aloha.
It just struck me how, as you were talking, and I guess I was hearing it as sort of spirituality, which for me is my spiritual practice, which is Zen. And the way you were describing it seems so in tune with my understanding of Zen spirituality. The island would be, in Buddhism, our true home. And the 8 divisions would be the Eightfold Path. And my own practice is meditation and koans. And koans are basically stories of our ancestors. So they connect us with the tradition all the way back to the Sung dynasty of China, and mostly Chinese Chan Buddhism and such. So you asked earlier what if the values resonated, and the one that resonated with me was related to observation, but it's called attention. And I recalled one of the Zen stories of Ikkyo, who was a calligraphy master, and people would always come to him and ask for calligraphy. And one person came and wanted his calligraphy, so he asked, "What is the essence of Zen?" And Ikkyo wrote down one character, attention. And the person, he wanted more than one character. So he said, "Well, isn't there something more?" And Ikkyo said, yes, of course there's more. And he wrote attention. So attention. And finally said, "Really, that's all?" And he says, "No, there's more. Attention. And that, it seemed to connect all of the 8 things. Dogen Zenji said, if you go out to the 10,000 beings, out to the world, that's delusion. But if you let the 10,000 things come to you, that's enlightenment. And it just resonated that it's those values, not just of feeling them yourself, but also feeling them come to you. So I was very moved by all of what you said and translating it into the Zen way of expressing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so beautifully said. Thank you. And the Eightfold Path, I'm actually not very familiar with that, but the number 8 is significant to a lot of cultures. The I Ching has 8 parts. I don't know if you've ever heard this in Hawaiian counting. So in Hawaiian counting, we count by 4s. So we count the 4, the 40, the 400, the 400,000 as our units of magnitude. But if we look at our hands, we have 10 fingers, but how many spaces? 8 spaces. And I have met somebody whose uncle still counts fish in the old style, where you dip your hand into a big cooler of fish, or in traditional times, a net, and you spear out 4 fish. 4 fish, you count 4, 8, 12, 16. And so what I think is really interesting is that it's not so much the physical matter, it's the space in between. So we have 8. And there is a legend of a supernatural bat, a Makavalu, who is an 8-eyed bat. And Makavalu has come forward in modern times through the Edith Kanakaole Foundation, practitioners of the Big Island, of this idea of Makavalu to have 8 eyes. Can you see things from 8 different perspectives? And so part of my heart-shaped island, those 8 pieces, those 8 districts, are mindfully done with that number 8, to have 8 views, 8 different under, around, backside, just seeing the same thing from different perspectives. And I realized I forgot to say one thing. So the space in the middle, this water source, that's where you would put whatever you're looking for. So here, if I just mark this up really quickly, and I put the word Pono into this water source, I can look at, okay, considering my spiritual path, what do I need to consider about Pono? Am I being Pono? Is somebody around me not being Pono? What do I need to come back into Pono? With the earth, am I being Pono to the earth? Is there something that makes me a better person, more Pono, like going to the ocean? That does it for me. With my lineage, is there something that I might need to shift? Or is my Pono somehow, magnetized or energized by my lineage? And we can just go on, but I forgot that very important piece. This is where we put whatever we're considering, and then we can take that thing throughout all of the districts. But yes, the number 8 is very special. So thank you for that, Bob. Thank you so much. All right. So, go ahead.
In Tai Chi, recently the teacher was talking also about 4 energies of movement, and they were with the 4 cardinal directions, and then the directions in between the cardinal directions. So 8 again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And Renee, aloha.
Aloha. I kind of want to invoke your mom a little bit from a story that I just read from the very formative years of the Christian tradition. And this appeared in one of our recent midweek publications here on island. And it's a story from, I guess, the tradition of the Desert Fathers, it's called. And I bring it forth wondering whether for you, this helps us to understand the idea of Pono, balanced justice, from the idea that I wonder whether when we're acting in Pono, we're acting in such a way that we're dispelling the problems, the pilikia, as opposed to creating more entanglements, which sometimes I think when we are meting out justice, that can actually cause a lot more problems. And last week's theme for reflection about harmony being when we try to attain harmony by force, we actually run into disharmony, right? So I'm thinking if we try to attain justice by force, we're probably going to run into injustice. So if you can indulge me, I'll just share this story as briefly as I can. There were a number of Christian seekers, men who were following, it sounds like a pretty ascetic tradition, who would go out into the desert. They were seeking to dispel their sins and to more closely align themselves with God. They each had their own little hut, and yet evidently they somehow knew what was going on in each other's huts, because they became suspicious that one of their brothers had been hiding a man in his hut. So they went to one of the elders and said, we want you to come with us so that we can go and talk to this guy and make sure he gets back in line. He didn't want to come, this elder, but they really insisted. So he came just as a supervisor of what was going on. Well, so the investigating brothers are approaching the hut. And in fact, there is a woman in the hut. And since they are in the desert, this hut has a very large urn to hold water. So he has the woman quickly hop into the urn and just manages to get the cover on the top of it when the brothers and the supervisor come in the door. The supervisor is coming in first. He walks straight to the urn and he sits upon it and supervises all of the investigations of the brothers. And they're frustrated, but they leave empty-handed. The supervisor gets off the urn and says, there are those who are watching. Watch yourself. And he leaves. And I wonder if that's an example that would serve well in terms of our understanding the Hawaiian concept of Pono. Are there elements to that resonate to you with this term, Pono?
Ooh, that's such a big question. I'm not quite sure how to approach that, but you mentioned entanglement, and I will share that at the heart of any illness and disease in Hawaiian thinking is entanglement. And as a body worker, I understand that when I look at scar tissue, right? We have muscles, and part of exercising and getting strong is tearing muscle fibers, allowing them to heal back again. And sometimes, they don't heal back smooth. That's how we have tightness and tension and aches in the body. So there is a certain amount of this entanglement that's necessary for life. But then there are the deep ones, the injuries, that create deep, deep scarring that really limit our ability to move. And that happens to us spiritually as well. When we lie or we tell a falsehood, that inherently creates an entanglement with the people who are involved. And so just understanding that it's all about relationships that can create that discord and entanglement. And if I think back to Malcolm Chun's research, the first thing that he named was belonging. Right? And that belonging is so important. I think when I'm describing Pono from this big picture of what are all the parts, I think when we have community and when we have a sense of belonging, maybe we all kind of understand the stakes, the rules, where we fit in. And this idea of an island as a framework also comes from a Hawaiian proverb that says, he wa'a he moku, he moku he wa'a. An island is a canoe, and a canoe is an island. And this idea that when you're on a canoe, you only have the resources and relations that you have on that canoe. Like, you can look in 360 degrees and only see horizon around you and ocean. You have to work together. The relations have to be sound for survival. And when we come to our island, we have finite resources. You know, it's different than on a continent or, you know, just different kinds of land bases. We only have what's available to us. And so I think that maybe I can't relate directly to that story, but maybe there's something there about maintaining the relationships and the expectations and the understandings and looking at, okay, well, what's in alignment, what's not? Maybe that person really needed a friend, who knows? Yeah, we can't know the wider picture. And so I think it was Roger that said we have to heal ourselves. We have to begin within and then move forward. But thank you. I will continue thinking about that. I see that we've only got about 10 minutes, and so I just want to hold space if anybody else would like to share that has not already shared. Let's see. Aloha, Carolyn.
Well, this is Carolyn. I'm back. I've disappeared visually, so I didn't know if you could hear me. Anyway, I'd like just to mention the unbelievable good fortune when I moved to California to finish my graduate school. I came into contact with two professors, and I'll just speak to, and they were married. Nandini Iyer, who lived to 90 and just passed away recently. She was impeccable in many ways, and that was part of her balance. Impeccable, always attentive to every duty, but the quality I'd like to mention and put on your list is fairness. She interacted with all kinds of people. This was a professor who would take a cooking class in the adult ed, or she was everywhere, interested in everything, and encountered and showed goodwill to so many people. So I think that's the way she kept her balance, because it was she was relentlessly busy and had many things to do, but she had this fairness. And so when others would be, kind of gossiping or not wanting, saying things negative, or to exclude them, she would always know that they had lovely qualities, whatever their, maybe some of their outer speech or behavior, including us. So I think that's really important. Of course, she wore saris, and she went to very important social occasions, but she could put on her blue jeans and go down and be part of a miniature golf competition that we arranged. So there was no end to it, but it always had a try to put uplifting into any situation. And she would be the first, if she made a mistake or something, she'd be the first to admit it and to make corrections. So she was, of course, a representation of Indian culture. And she and her husband were also at Oxford. So before they came to California, to kind of help us out and learn some good qualities. So I just wanted to mention her.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I love that as you talked about her fairness, that you also brought forward her goodwill. I think
Mhm.
that sounds like, and also another aspect, that fairness and goodwill. So thank you. Thank you for bringing her into our circle. And aloha, David.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the list. You know, I studied Lomi Lomi on the Big Island, and my chant is a chant of forgiveness. And I'm not sure if that was on your list or not, but we always look at healing as a function of forgiveness. And yeah, so thank you.
Yes, thank you. I considered bringing into the discussion Ho'oponopono, but that is such a big topic. I thought, I'm just going to bring it in a different way. I chose to go a different way, but to be an active participant in making things right requires a lot of things, and forgiveness is a really important part. So thank you so much for that. And I see Roger has raised his hand. Aloha.
Uh, hi, Kumu. Yeah, it made me think of one of my great mentors, Jerry Jampolsky. And rather than talk about forgiveness, I would like to bring him into the conversation in the form of acceptance. And such a big part of forgiveness and gratitude, but this whole idea of how you live your life, being in the moment because you're focused on what the Zen saying was is attention. So we're right here, right now, and being in attention, to be accepting of precisely where you are, where everything is. And I think that's a huge thing that Jerry lived, even though one could see his faults. And so it's encouraged me to see my faults and accept them, and just see that as all part of this concept that I think we're really focusing on, of being here now, being in the moment, being present, and perhaps the other aspect of forgiveness, gratitude, that we really accept what we have and we're grateful for it. So I wanted to add that at the end.
Oh, and that resonates so deeply with me, this idea of gratitude. Many of you know that my classes always begin with a gratitude circle. We are rounding into our last couple of minutes. I just want to make sure we give time for anybody who would like to just to bring somebody into our circle. So I'm sorry it'll be a little bit brief, but Elaine, our beautiful Alaula, thank you for joining.
And thank you. I'm thinking of a person I worked with who we didn't always see eye to eye. However, it's his recommendation of a class that I took at one of our local retreat centers that started me on the path that has brought me to today. And so for me, part of what I think I'm hearing about Pono is the recognition that we are all complicated and balanced critters. And even someone who maybe we don't always agree with has something very valuable to offer to us if we're willing to look.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. A lot of a big part of my hula classes is sometimes challenging our balance so that we can find it. So thank you so much. And bye punanani, aloha.
Aloha no e kumu. I was sitting here and thinking, and now I'm going to be trying to slap everything in right now. I feel I haven't achieved Pono yet. I think I'm still striving for it. I see myself that I want to teach my kid and my grandchildren and my great-grandchild what Pono is. And in order for me to do that, I understand about the aina and the water and all that. That's really important to us. And I feel once I can achieve that Pono, what you're talking about, then I'll be really, really happy. My great granddaughter is going to be 1 at the end of this month. My goal is to show her as much as I've learned about the balance in the Pono. And I want to tell her that I'm sorry that I didn't understand. I kind of turned everything off when I was 40 years old. And now I'm over 60, and here I am trying to learn everything I can. And I hope I achieve it before God comes and takes me. So that's what Pono is to me.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. My dad, he passed away last year, and he was such a dear, interesting soul. He taught autobiographical writing at Leeward Community College. He also taught many intro to linguistics, a lot of English 100. And one of his true callings was to inspire people to write their stories. And so by Punanani, I hope in big and small ways you start to write down or to video yourself talking about your journey, because I don't think we learn from perfect people. I don't think that if we looked at the ancient epic tales and legends that it would be really interesting if everybody was perfect. It's the struggle, you know, it's the journey that goes where you don't expect. That we really have that opportunity to learn and to grow. So I just dearly, dearly, dearly hope and support you sharing your story with your family. We are just at the top of our time, but if anybody really feels called to share, I hope you reach out or raise up your hand. And if not, that's fine. I hope that you continue thinking about this idea of fair, balance, Pono, and what are the qualities that help you to achieve that? Who are the people that have inspired that feeling in you, that have modeled that for you? And I hope that you have many, many, many unfolding thoughts to nourish your heart and brain. But thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you so much, Kumu Malia. And I would like to have you consider, each of you, whether one of you would like to give a vote of thanks to Kumu before we completely sign off. And as you're thinking about that, I want to tell you that next week's theme is the evolutionary tide. And we have someone who is a regular part of this group, Elizabeth Saturas, who is an evolutionary biologist, and she's going to approach this topic from the spiritual and scientific perspectives. So is there somebody who would like to close us out with a mahalo to Kumu? Roger.
Yes, thank you, Renee. Malia, that was just so fantastic. Just to put it in the Hawaiian context and to have done it yourself, that resonated with the Zen tradition, all the traditions I've known. It's just incredible. And I feel so strongly about you, your incredible wisdom at such, well, you look like you're about 25, but I know that you couldn't do that if you had an 18-year-old. But still, in your youth relative to many of us. And it's just so brilliant. And I thank you, and I want to encourage you. I really feel that the Hawaiian spirituality and Hawaiian culture, this is another time for a move forward. You know, struggled so much, and then we had these wonderful aunties come in the late 50s and early 60s, and now we have so many people like yourself who are accomplished and articulate. And I just hope that more people can get your message, which we all just so appreciated today, and that you can be part of yet another renaissance of Hawaiian culture, which will lead us to where we'd like the world to go. So on behalf of everyone, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Mahalo nui. And I started this talk by bringing in my mom, and I have brought in my dad. And he was so excited when I was born, a girl in the 70s, because he really saw a lot of these changes that you mentioned. And he was so excited to have a girl who could grow up with these different, different revolutions. And so thank you so much. I'd like to just close with an oli. And this one, oh, yes, Renee?
Can you please turn on your original sound so we can actually hear that, Oli?
Sure, yeah, I did that. I'm sorry, I'm in a very resonant room. So I think actually it would be a really lovely full circle to go back to the first chant. And now we can do it in a way where you can all hear. And so this is a pule ho'ola. There's no English here, but really briefly, this is the divine God, our ancestral guardians, our elders, and we're asking for care and nurturance from all of them to us, from above to below, from inside to outside, from the east to the west, from the zenith to the horizon. And yes, those are eight directions. To be guided, to be guarded, to be supported, and to be given life and healing that comes through love. So this is Pule Ho'ola, a prayer of healing. Ha kuana auma kuana kupuna, e malama o koyamako, mailuna lalo mailo koavaho, mai kahikina ke komohana, mai ka ho'okui, a kahala hie, kia i mai, ka ko mai, ho'ola mai ke aloha and 2 claps to close. Mahalo nui, everyone.
Hello. Aloha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Join us at our party, everyone.
6:30 to 8.
Still
you.
a pleasure.